Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us again. And we'll be continuing with the Budgeting 101 lesson. So today will be Budgeting 102, just looking at the importance of understanding your needs versus wants on your budget and how it can actually affect your budget. I will then go off on my video so that I can actually take you through the lesson. And then once the lesson is concluded, we'll be able to give you an opportunity to ask questions relating to today's topic. Okay, here we go. So budgeting 201. Just as a recap, I would like us to actually go through briefly what we learned last week, which was, of course, the importance of what a budget is. And as we stated last week, that a personal budget is a finance plan that helps one allocate their income according to the monthly expenses. So your budget, ideally, the budget needs to be related to how much you earn. So, as I mentioned last week, that this is the time for you to be honest about what you make for a living and how much money you make, so that you can make sure that you compile your budget according to the income that you earn, and you can have a clear view of what your expenditure is on a monthly basis. Right. And then, of course, we said that the purpose of a monthly budget is to help you plan for your spending and better understand your finances. Yes, Black Friday was yesterday. And of course, some stores are actually continuing with the spending frenzy. So a lot of people normally make these kind of mistakes when it comes to their personal finances, because they walk into a store and then they get overwhelmed by the amazing deals that are supposedly offered by these various stores. But I mean, I liked what I heard on 702 yesterday, where they were talking about how some consumers were actually complaining that the Black Friday deals are not so many, there are not so many bargains anymore. And I have to concur with that kind of comment, because I mean, that's the other reason why I personally then stopped going to Black Fridays, because I started noticing that, hey, these prices are not necessarily bargain prices. It's just marked down by 10 rand, 20 rand. And of course, before I mean, 5 years ago, when Black Friday started, you really saw the benefit of actually going to Black Friday. So a lot of people, have continued going to Black Friday to actually get those deals, and unfortunately, then fall into that trap of making the wrong financial decisions when it comes to their spending, ideally because they didn't have a plan in place or have any form of budget that they've put up to try and actually ensure that they don't overspend during the Black Friday or any other spending habits that they might have during the course of the month. So the reason we want to actually look at needs versus wants, it's because when we did the breakdown of your budget in terms of having your income first and then putting up your expenses, be it having your fixed expenses, then having your variable expenses. One thing that individuals need to understand is understanding the difference between needs and wants. And of course, yes, the definition of a need is something that you cannot live without. And typical examples would always be water, food, shelter, clothing. But then the question around, and the debate always comes up, because some people say, hey, yes, I live in a particular household, but is it now falling within a need, or is it falling as a luxury? Because that then goes into what a want is, which is more around luxurious items, because a want is defined as something that you can live without because it just improves your quality of life, but it does not necessarily mean that without this particular item you will not be able to actually live your best life. But the purpose of wants is more luxurious, just to make your life a bit easier and provide you a bit of comfort. A great example of this is a vehicle. Some people always say that, no, a vehicle is a need. I mean, how am I going to get around Nonjabulo if I don't have a vehicle? But there's other forms of transportation. The the purpose of having a vehicle is the convenience, because you don't need to go and wait for public transportation. You'll be able to actually jump into your car and travel to wherever you need to go at your convenience. So wants are more centered around convenience, and that is why you pay for the wants. So they cost more ideally because you are paying for that convenience. Convenience is a luxury, and a luxury is directly there's a direct correlation between a luxury and the cost of that luxury, because it's making your life a little bit easier and it's making things better for you. So hence why you pay more for it. So another thing that I wanted to highlight is that when it comes to needs and wants, my needs are not the same as someone else's needs. This is similar to the concept of broke. Sometimes you hear that people say there's different levels of brokenness. One person could be broke in terms of they can say that I'm broke if I'm not able to travel to New York whenever I want. That's their level of brokenness. Another person's level of brokenness could be an example would be if they can't afford to maybe buy a loaf of bread. That is another level of brokenness. So it's a similar concept with needs and wants, because when you look at your level of affordability, that is what speaks to your needs, and that's what speaks to your wants. Because depending on how much you can afford or what you can afford, that actually has a big impact in terms of how you actually define things when it comes to your budget, right? And this is why it's important to then focus up around affordability. And this affordability speaks exactly when we spoke last week when we were talking about incorporating savings into your budget. And I mentioned that even when you're thinking about saving, you need to determine how much you can afford to save. It's the same concept here. Affordability is important because that is your indicator as to, is this a need? Is this a want, right? And we will go through an example to try and actually explain this better. And then, of course, we'll be able to take questions and open up the discussion to the rest of the group. So affordability, as it says, affordability is more around how much you earn versus how much you spend. And of that spending, can I afford to actually make this particular purchase? Because sometimes people make the assumption that, okay, I earn this amount of money, and just because I got a letter from a bank saying that I'm approved for a particular, maybe let's say a vehicle, I've got an approval to purchase a vehicle. But just because you've got an approval to purchase a vehicle, it does not necessarily mean that you can afford that vehicle. Why do I say that? There are so many other factors that you need to consider, right? When you are purchasing something like a vehicle. Say, if you're purchasing the vehicle, you still need to fuel the vehicle. Okay, it's not going to start, you're not going to put water and your vehicle is going to be able to take you from point A to point B. So firstly, it's the cost of fuel, right? Second of all, it's the maintenance. So if you have a tire burst, then what happens, all right? How are you going to repair the tire? The third thing that you need to consider is the insurance. A lot of people actually purchase vehicles and they don't actually have the insurance to pay for the vehicle. God forbid you find yourself in a situation where you are in a car accident and the person who bumps you is a person who doesn't have car insurance. So now it's going to be, the liability will be on you to try and see how you fix your vehicle, because you now have to be chasing around this person to see how you're going to be able to fix that vehicle. And the reason I'm bringing this up regarding the needs and wants is because, like I mentioned, affordability is the best way to define what your needs and your wants are. Because when you understand how much you afford, you have a clear indication in terms of making that decision as, okay, is this something I really need? Or is this falling more into the wants of my budget? And if it's a want, can I afford this want? If I can't afford it, then you cannot purchase it, and it shouldn't be part of your budget. That's how simple it is. Understanding your affordability, then making the decision when you do your budget to say, okay, can I afford this? Yes. If I can afford this, is this a step further? Is this a need? If it's not a need, then you ask yourself, okay, yes, I can afford it. If it's not a need, okay, it's not a need, but it's more of a want. But then the question then, is it something that is necessary at that point in time? Can I not wait and save towards this particular item? So those are kind of all the kind of questions that you need to be able to probe yourself and ask yourself every time you're making financial decisions in terms of your budget, especially now since the festive season has kicked off. And of course, thanks to the Black Friday, some people are already finding themselves in a bad financial situation because they maybe went over budget yesterday. And of course, whilst the Black Friday deals still proceed during the course of this weekend and probably up until the end of the month. So sometimes people will still find themselves falling into the trap to see that, okay, there's a deal here, let me take this deal, without actually having a budget for that particular item. This is why it's important, right? It's important to distinguish your needs and wants. Ideally, like I mentioned, financial responsibility. Prioritizing your needs makes sure that you are acting financially responsible and it ensures your financial stability. How does it do that? We mentioned that a need would be your food, your shelter, your clothing, your water, things that are basic needs that you need to actually survive for you to be able to continue living. If you don't buy food, that is not sustainable, right? So how are you being financially responsible if you're not buying food, because you're not going to have the energy to be able to continue working and doing whatever that you need to do on a daily basis. So food is a must. But where you consume your food, so where do you purchase your food? This is where I normally advise and say, actually, if you're going to be looking into deals, these Black Friday deals or festive seasons specials, why don't you club with friends? I mean, you clubbing with friends for a 200 Rand special to get maybe three bottles of olive oil, right? Let's use olive oil as a example and say, if they're offering you 3 bottles of olive oil, right? And instead of you purchasing those 3 bottles by yourself, why can't you club with 2 other friends and then you all split the cost of that particular item, and then each individual has a bottle each? That is now you being savvy and smart with your shopping. You are buying something that you need, but you are not overspending, because the overspending comes when you start purchasing things and you think that, okay, I'm buying this in bulk, henceforth I'm not going to be buying olive oil in the next 3 months or the next 6 months. But this is a counterpoint. Yes, you've saved at that point in time because you've bought 6 bottles of olive oil, right, today. But what happens, and you've already used this 500 Rand to buy 6 bottles of olive oil. Tomorrow, your child tells you that I need to pay 500 Rand towards a book that I lost, and they're not going to give me my school report. If I don't have that book, if I don't submit that book before the end of the year. So that then comes into what we call the value, the time value of money, which means your money is valuable to you today because it allows you to be able to make purchases and do things with it today. It has no value to you if you're going to be thinking around, I've bought this item today, but I'm only going to use it in the future. But you've spent the money today. So in a situation where you've got your child, they now need 500 Rand to actually pay for that book that they lost so they can get their report card. You've used the 500 Rand on bottles of olive oil that you're going to be using in 6 months. So what is worth more? Is the 6 bottles of olive oil bringing you any value now? No, they are sitting in your cupboard and they are gathering dust until you open them and use them at that point in time. But if you had not done that impulsive purchase at that point in time, you could have that 500 Rand available to give to your child so that they can be able to pay for the study guide or this the book that they lost so they can get the report card. So that is an example of what time value of money means, because your money is valuable now because it allows you the opportunity to do things now, and it has no value to you if you use money now for things that are going to be in the future that are not going to be bearing you any interest. It's not the same as you using money now to invest and then you'll be earning interest. It's a totally different thing, because when you buy something, you've used the money. But if you're buying something that you're going to be using in the future, then it's not adding value to you. You could have used the money today for something that will help you today, right? So those are the kind of things that you consider, especially during the season, because there will be a lot of opportunities to buy maybe three 10 kgs of rice, 3 liters, 5 liters of oil. And at that point in time, you think to yourself, oh my goodness, I can actually get this oil and I won't need to buy oil for the rest of the year. But reality is, if you're using that money today, it's not adding any value to you if you're going to be buying items that are only going to be utilized in the future. You've already spent the money today. So consider that, especially when you're making any bulk purchases or during this festive season, especially with all the specials that are happening around. Think about the time value of money, right? And that's what financial responsibility is all about. When you make a decision about your money and you think to yourself, actually, does this make more sense to buy it now because I'm only going to use it in 3 months? Then it's a no. Yes, it's on special now and it's on sale now, and it makes more sense to buy it now because it's cheaper now. But technically it's not cheaper now, because if you use that money, you can't get that money back. You've already used it for an item that you're only going to use in the future. All right. Goal setting. Identifying your wants helps you set realistic goals. I cannot stress this point enough, right? Because sometimes, yes, we all want to put it on our wish list and have a financial goal to say, I want to go to Dubai, I want to go to Paris. But when you sit down with your budget and you calculate, this is how much I earn, these are my expenses, this is how much I can afford to save. It gives you a clearer view of what are your spending habits, firstly, in terms of your expenses, your fixed and your variable expenses. Secondly, it gives you an indication as to, is it a realistic goal for me to be the person who's always going to conquer every weekend with friends? Because currently my affordability does not speak to that. So when you set your goals and you're focusing and you're understanding your needs and your wants, your goal setting is more centered around things that are realistic. So if you are earning a salary of 10,000 Rand and 80% of your salary is being used on expenses, and you've only got 2,000 Rand to make ends meet until the next payday cycle, is it realistic for you to put down to say that I want to save 5,000 Rand a month? How are you going to save 5,000 Rand a month if you only have 2,000 Rand left over at the end of the month? So being able to identify your needs, your wants on your budget, then helps you see that, okay, are these realistic goals that I'm setting for myself, or are these more of dreams that I would want to actually achieve one day? Because we need to be realistic, especially in terms of what we want to stretch our wallets towards. It's not realistic to try and stretch your wallets towards something that is not achievable because of the lifestyle you're currently living. But when you sit down and you look at your budget and you plan better, then you start realizing that actually maybe I might not be able to afford to go to Dubai right now, but I can take myself to Durban, right? Small wins are things that you also need to focus on and be able to celebrate those kind of wins, right? And the other one, resource allocation. Okay, resource allocation, efficient allocation of resources based on priorities. This is stressing the same point again. If I have a salary of 5,000 Rand, I'm renting a back room somewhere in Soweto and I'm paying 1,500 Rand towards that back room. I've got 3,500 Rand that I need to utilize efficiently until the next payday cycle. I still need to buy food in that 3,500. I still need to get transportation so that I can go to work. So when you start looking at your needs and your wants, you start making better financial decisions. On that 3,500, I need to think about, okay, I still need to travel to work. I still need to buy food. If I've got a child, I need to be able to pay for that child tuition if they are going to school. Or I need to give them transport money if they're going to a government school and they're not paying for tuition fees. I need to buy uniform, school uniform changes. It's hot, it's cold. I need to be able to actually accommodate those changes. So when you're allocating your resources more efficiently by understanding your needs and wants, you're able to actually narrow down. You narrow down in terms of all the things of luxury, thinking about DSTV. Yes, DSTV is a luxury. I know some people would disagree on that, but it's a luxury because at the end of the day, you can live without DSTV, right? It's the same as people saying that, no, actually, I need to be able to treat myself. A lot of people spend a lot of money on self-care, right? That's a nice fancy word of saying that I want to get my nails done, I want to get my hair done. It's called self-care. I need to go for a massage once a month. I need to go out for drinks with friends. That's all form part of you saying that, okay, this is more of an allocation of my funds according to self-care. But how much of that self-care are you doing? Do you have a budget for that self-care? You need to get into the habit of doing things based on a budget. If your friends call you, it's December now. I mean, hey, we're technically in December. You've seen the mood on the streets, and people now, I mean, everybody's wearing brighter clothes. Everybody's now and nice and relaxed. So it's already, we're in that mood. We're in that season. Festive season has kicked in. And of course, the invitations are going to be coming in floods, and people calling you or messaging you to say, hey, let's hang out, let's do this. But you need, the onus is on you to be able to say, hey, I haven't budgeted for this. If I'm going to go out with you guys this weekend, next weekend I can't go out, the last weekend of the month I'll be able to go out. That is what I've budgeted for. And trust me, if you don't respect your finances, you can't expect other people to respect your finances. So the responsibility and the onus is on you to make the right decisions so that when you are able to say no to people, people will learn to respect your finances. So if you're not going to be able to tell people, no, guys, I did not plan for this, I cannot go out with you, then what do you think? What makes you think that these individuals are going to be able to be respectful when they come to you and say, can I borrow money from you? They will treat you the same way you treat your finances. If your finances are just treated, hogwash in terms of you not having a plan, you use the money as you please, and you say, oh, guys, I got paid, let's go drinking. You go drinking with your friends, and then at the end of the day, you come back, you don't have any more money to carry you to the rest of the month. And so how do you expect people to be more respectful towards your finances if you're not respectful to you're not respectful to your own finances? So it's important, resource allocation, and making sure that you're allocating your resources efficiently, focusing more on your needs. Have I paid my rent? Have I bought my groceries? Have I allocated my transport money? And it's the time. December is the time. People are lazy. What's going to happen? You're getting these invites. People start getting into the allocated funds for their transports, and then you find people saying that, okay, I can't go to work, I don't have transport money. If you're able to buy, maybe if you're using the bus, buy the tickets in advance and know that, okay, I've already paid for these tickets and I know that I've allocated, so that you try and minimize the opportunity for you to be tempted to utilize the transport money for the wrong reasons. So those are all the little things that you can do to try and make sure that you safeguard yourself from overspending, right? Another one is, we've mentioned the your rent, paying your rent as a priority. We've mentioned buying your food as a priority. We mentioned your transport. Those are the basic things for you to know that, okay, I need to get myself to work. These are the three main things that I need to actually cater for, because if I don't pay my rent, my landlord is going to kick me out. Where am I going to live? I can't start living on the streets just merely because I wanted to go drinking with friends, right? So allocating your resources efficiently speaks to that. What is important? Being important is something that you need to live with, and you know that I can't live without this. I can't start living on the streets just for the sake of having fun during December. No. So that is not allocating resources well. So when you allocate your resources, you focus on your needs, and you make sure that you cater for those needs at that point in time first, before you look at the rest of the items on your budget. You always cater for the needs first, then the wants come later, right? Here is an example, right, for us to be able to see A teacher here. Thandi is earning a salary of 20,000 Rand every month, right? And she's doing her budget before she gets paid. Big ups to you, Thandi. And I mentioned this and I will continue mentioning this. Doing your budget before you get paid is always the best, because that way you are planning towards the money you're going to get. It serves no purpose for you to do a budget after you've gotten your salary, because you now, debit orders going boom, 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 boom this entire time. Chances are you're not going to even be able to keep track as to how much money did you earn, and now you need to be doing a reconciliation instead of planning. So it's now you're already in the back foot. So if you plan, you do your budget at least a day, 2 days, I normally say 2 3 days or 5 days before. It's best, because you're clear-minded and you understand to see that, all right, these are the debit orders that are going to go off on my account, and you're planning. I'm going to pay my rent. I need to transfer this amount of money towards my rent. I need to pay this. I need to pay that. I need to allocate this amount of money towards my transportation. I need to allocate this amount of money towards buying groceries. All of that is part of your planning, so that you make sure that you don't find yourself in a situation where you've overspent. Okay. So doing the budget before you get paid is always the best solution. Here's Thandi's monthly budget. Okay, here's Thandi's income. She earns a net income of 20,000 Rand. Okay, so we don't use the gross income when it comes to your budget, because that's not money you earn. The gross income is just a nice big figure that sits on your payslip, and then it gets deducted by all these other deductions, and then the net income is what you get credited into your account. So it does not help you to put your gross income as a figure on your budget, because that's not what you earn. You put what you earn, which is your net income. That is the amount of money that gets credited into your bank account. Right. Then we have the breakdown. She pays rent, she has a vehicle, she pays insurance, a loan. She's got DSTV Compact. She also has Showmax. Oh, Thandi. She's got Netflix. Oh, Thandi. She pays a stokvel. She's got a school transport and monthly school fees, right? See how I've put these items under fixed expenses? Just to recap in terms of the learnings we did last week. Fixed expenses are expenses that normally don't change, right? Your rent, you normally sign a contract with your landlord, and that contract is normally valid for 12 months or more. And if the contract is valid for 12 months, that means that rental expense is not going to change for the next 12 months. Therefore, that is why it goes under fixed. Vehicle finance, the same thing applies. You sign a contract with the bank, and that amount only changes if the repo rate changes, which then impacts your interest rate for that particular vehicle. Okay. Insurance, the same thing with insurance. Your insurance, you review your insurance every year on the anniversary of your insurance. So that review is done once a year. So chances are Thandi is going to be paying this 960 until she cancels the insurance. So that is why we put it under fixed expenses. All right. The loan amount, that's exactly the same. It works exactly the same as the vehicle finance. The loan amount, she signed a contract, be it 36 or 12 months, however long the contract is, but that loan amount is not going to change. The repayment of that loan is not going to change, right? Because it's pre-calculated once she's signed for that loan, and it's only impacted by the interest rate and the repo rate if there's any changes. And yes, we are grateful that the Reserve Bank did not increase interest rates this past Thursday, right? Sitting at 11.75. We're crossing fingers and toes. DSTV Compact, it's the same thing. With DSTV, you sign a contract, you select a package, and you pay that amount every single month. You're getting the idea of why these expenses are fixed. So we break down the fixed and variable expenses, because when you're starting to try and see where you can reduce your expenses, it's the best way to see what can I reduce, where am I overspending. Okay, we'll look at Thandi shortly. Right, so let's just continue with the rest of her expenses. Variable expense will be her fuel consumption. Of course, fuel prices increase, decrease. It also depends in terms of what kind of traveling she does. The more she travels, the more fuel she consumes. This month she could have been working from home, maybe for 3 times a a week, or she was sick, or she had some reason not to be going to the office, and as a result then her fuel consumption will reduce. In cases where sometimes she'll have to go and attend teacher conferences and so forth, then fuel consumption of course will increase. So it's based on consumption. Your variable expenses are always based on consumption, and you have more control over reducing those expenses because you consume them. It's the same with groceries. She's currently spending 2,500 Rand for groceries. If she decides to say, hey, maybe I should stop shopping, maybe at Checkers or Woolworths, let me rather go and look for specials at ShopRite. Let me go to a Spar. Sometimes it does have nice specials, but not so much. I can go to maybe ShopRite. I can go to Boxer, then to find actually better deals. Those kind of decisions will then have an impact on her grocery shopping in terms of the amount of money she spends, right? She can be able to shave a few rands, 100 rands, just by changing where she shops. Okay, I'm sure a lot of people have actually made that discovery, and that's why people normally change and look out for deals when they're doing their grocery shopping. Clothing accounts, right? Clothing accounts work the very same way. You normally pay for what you've used if you've got an account. So in this instance, if we're saying that maybe she's got an account that is owing 6,000 Rand or 7,000 Rand, ideally this is the amount of money that she could be possibly paying towards that account on a monthly basis to pay off. So it's normally 10,000 and more for 1,500 Rand that she's paying off on a monthly basis. Credit card is also more consumption based, because if she pays back the credit card, right, she can also use the money. So this month, if she's only used 500 Rand on that credit card, she only pays interest on 500 Rand, not the full credit card. Unlike the loan, where she would then be paying the full amount for the loan amount she's borrowed. But we will learn more about those kind of for the difference between these lending products when we do our lesson on borrowing money, and then would be able to actually have a nice breakdown of how these different lending products work and how you can actually make them work for you. So this example just goes back to what we're talking about when it comes to needs and wants. Here's Thandi, here's the expenses, here's her budget. Well put, Thandi, well done. But there are a few things that she needs to actually consider when it comes to the budget, because her total expenses are 20,118 Rand. So it means she's owing, she actually has 118 Rand that she has not catered for. She's actually overspending, meaning that her budget, her expenses are more than her income, because she only gets 20,000 Rand, but yet she has a deficit of about 118 Rand. So if we look at these expenses that Thandi has here, some of the things that I've highlighted, right, as things that are not needs. So all the items I've highlighted in pink are the items I would deem more of wants, not needs. Because like I said, a need is defined as an item that you cannot live without. And let's just do a check here. We said that a want is an item that you can live without, but is more about making your life more convenient and improving your life. This is why I highlighted the vehicle, right? There are other forms of transportation, but by having a car, it makes her life a bit more convenient. She's able to travel and do this and do that with her vehicle, but it's not really a need, okay? And this speaks to what we spoke about earlier. Just because you got an approval from the bank does not necessarily mean you can afford that vehicle, because can you afford the maintenance of that vehicle, right? If you can't afford the insurance on that vehicle, you definitely can't afford that vehicle, because what happens if you bump someone or you get into a car accident, God forbid, then how are you going to pay for the fixing that vehicle or the vehicle of the other individual that you were in the car accident with? So insurance is a first indicator. If you can't afford the insurance, then you can't afford the vehicle. So it's already a no-no, okay? Here's that. So if she actually looks at this vehicle and insurance, right? The loan, a lot of people get loans, but the question is around why why get short-term debt? I know that sometimes because we are not a nation of saving, okay? And so people find themselves in situations where they would need to borrow money to be able to pay for a shortfall. And a perfect example here is if you don't have funeral cover and you lose a family member and people need to contribute towards that funeral, then sometimes people then have to opt to take a loan. And in situations, for example, where, like now I'm giving an example, say Tandy bumped someone's car and she didn't have insurance at that point in time. She would have to come in and take a loan to be able to pay for the repairs of that vehicle. Okay. So short-term debt is never a good idea because of the interest rate that you pay on that short-term debt. So when I say she needs to actually relook at some of these expenses in terms of them being needs or versus wants, why is she paying for DSTV Compact, Showmax, Netflix? Choose one. Choose one struggle. There is no need to have all three, right? What I've done in my family, what we normally do is that I pay for Netflix and then I'm utilizing my mom's DSTV because they use my Netflix account. So we share the logins. That way, I pay for something, someone else pays for something, and another person can pay for something else. Then it's not a burden on one person to be able to pay and cater for all of these subscriptions. It's nice. It's a nice to have, but it's not necessary. It is definitely not a need. Choose one struggle. So either you delete or cancel the DSTV or the Showmax and Netflix. You keeping one. That's the best. That's the best thing. Because I mean, these alone, right? If we look at these alone, they're making about 6,368 rand on her budget. Okay. If we say, okay, we'll leave the car and we'll leave the insurance, but it's still a lot of money. If you look at the loan, the DSTV, the Showmax, Netflix, and the Stockfell. Stockfells are another one, another culprit. Sometimes you find people having so many Stockfells because they say that the Stockfell helps me. It helps me at the end of the year. But how are you living hand to mouth during the course of the year because you want to get a lump sum? I always challenge people with Stockfells and say, okay, the Stockfell it's a nice concept because it pushes you, and I think that's what people like about Stockfells. You have a group of people that come together and they're all putting money, and so you know that if you don't contribute, oh, Mom's man is going to call you, hey bo, you didn't contribute to the Stockfell, you owe us, you need to put your contribution to the Stockfell. I think that is sometimes what people benefit like as a benefit, because it's more of someone pushing you to save, because that Stockfell is like a little savings, because every time it rotates, you maybe get your portion or you get that lump sum maybe twice a year, depending how many people are in that Stockfell. So I think people like the concept of a Stockfell because it gives them that push. But I can counter your point and say, why don't you open a savings account from a bank that you don't bank with, right? Hear me out. The reason I say this, if you're banking, right? If you're banking with ABSA, for example, and your salary and your debit orders go off at ABSA, it means you have a banking app for ABSA. You normally transact on that banking app with ABSA. Anything happens on your account, you are seeing that money going in, that money going out. You are enticed to use that money because you have that banking app. Why don't you go and open a separate account? Go to Capitec, go to Standard Bank, go to FNB, go to any other bank, but not the bank you bank with. Then you do a stop order. You get the bank account number from, let's say you go to Capitec. You open a separate savings account at Capitec. You take that account number, you take it to your ABSA, the ABSA branch, and you ask them, can you open a stop order for me? You get paid on the 25th of every month. Tell them, I want to do a stop order on the 25th of every month. I want to put a stop order of 500 Rand to go to that account. Why am I saying this? You are not able to see that account, that Capitec account, because you don't bank with Capitec. You've seen the queues at Capitec. Trust me, it will frustrate you to even think about going to Capitec just to check a bank balance, né? Because it's hectic. There's always long queues and long lines. So it's a nice deterrent for you to make sure that you don't go and access that account. Do that for 12 months, right? 500 Rand over 12 months at 12 months is 6,000 rand. All right. If you were paying 1,000 rand towards a stokvel, do that very thing and put that money into an account and do that stop order payment every single month towards that account. And then you will see that you are also able to grow this habit of saving without having to join the stokvels, because you enjoy having Umam Smanban call you to say, oh, okay, please pay, you haven't paid your contribution. So now when you do it yourself, it then also allows you to start learning the habit of saving, and then you're able to actually build discipline, because saving is all about discipline. That's all it is. It just requires discipline. And the minute you learn, and they say what the scientists say that it takes 21 days to build and break a habit. So if you do that for 21 days, 1 month, right? And that's already more than 21 days. 1 month, you start that habit. The next month, it's easier. And that's why I say, if you do a stop order, you've done it, you're finished, because you are not doing the manual transfer yourself. You know that that stop order is going to go off, you like it or not. And if you have to go to the bank to cancel it, it's another headache, because the 25th is a busy month at the bank. So it's, you see, you creating all of these challenges for yourself so that you know that I'm not going to go access this money. That's all you need to do. And then try and minimize the stokvels. I've had a client who had so many stokvels, all the money, spending 5,000 on just stokvels. And you're thinking, but if you were able to transfer this money every month into an account that you don't utilize, into a bank that you don't use, then you know that, okay, I've got this money. And you'll be shocked to find out and see how much money you've managed to save in just 1 year, just because you started disciplining yourself and stop relying on stokvels. Because the stokvel, how many times do you earn the interest? Unlike at putting the money aside, you earn a bit of more interest and it's safer. How many times have you heard? I mean, these criminals are now aware that people play stokvels and December is coming. People are going to be getting payouts from stokvels, and then they are getting targeted. So why would you want to put yourself and your money at risk? Those are things that you need to consider. There are so many ways to try and learn how to do better when it comes to managing your finances, but the onus is on you, right? Credit card and clothing accounts. There's another examples of what I want. I mean, why can't you be a person who buys clothing every season and every end of season? We all know there's specials, crazy specials during, maybe at the end of spring, there will be a nice sale. At end of autumn, winter, summer, whichever season, there's always a sale. Why can't you plan towards it? Because this is not information you don't have. You have this information. You know that every year at this period of the months, these 3 months, it's going to start winter. Therefore, they'll be taking out summer stock. It will be on sale because they'll be putting winter. We know this. Why can't we plan towards it? Why can't we start saving towards it and stop having clothing accounts? Because the interest that you pay, imagine having to still pay for a clothing item you worn once and it ripped, or someone stole it from the washing line. You don't have that clothing item anymore, but you're still paying for it. How frustrating is that? So the concept of having to pay for clothing on credit is a problem, because sometimes then that's how you end up buying what you don't need, because you're buying with store credit. Trust me, if you go on a shopping spree and the cashier tells you, sir, ma'am, your total bill is 10,000 rand. There's no way you're going to take out your debit card and pay 10,000 rand on clothing, because it's going to ring in your head with, hey, bo, am I using 10,000 rand just on clothing? Right? So if you start getting into the habit of moving away from all these kind of credits, your clothing accounts, your credit cards, then it gives you a bit of a reality check. You are able to check yourself to make sure that you're not overspending and you're not buying unnecessary things, and your budget is not made of wants. Like, yeah, Tandy's budget is made of wants, because this stokvel is not a need. Netflix, not a need. Showmax, not a need. DSTV, not a need. This loan, well, depending what you needed the loan for, we can highlight it, but it's not a need. You can always plan towards these kind of situations. And that's why when we do our savings, I'll be teaching about how can you start building an emergency fund based on how much you earn. Because sometimes people like using the excuse that I can't afford to save, I don't earn enough money. Trust me, you will never earn enough money. people who make money. That's why the billionaires are still working and they're still trying to get more money, right? Because it's like you can never get enough money. But the important thing is for you to be content with what you have and focus on using what you have and not trying to get more, because the more you get, the more expenses you have. That's why people who, when they get their bonuses, they get their increases, they hardly save. They always find expenses to fill those bonuses, to fill those increases. So it's just about changing your habits and how you normally do things, so that you can try and see how you can stretch your rands and make sure that you are living within your means. So that is it regarding today's lesson, and hopefully that you guys were able to learn something. And I am going to stop sharing and allow you guys to be able to ask any questions related to the topic that we were learning about today. If you have questions, you can just pop your questions on the chat, or you can unmute yourself so that you can ask your question, and then we'll be able to address those questions. If there's no questions, then I'll be able to actually end the lesson and call it a night. Do we have any questions? No questions going once. No questions going twice. Okay, so I will end the lesson, and then of course you can always feel free to ask your questions even on our WhatsApp group if you are one of the shy people who did not want to ask any questions during this recorded session. Well, you are welcome to actually ask your questions on the WhatsApp group, and then we'll be able to address those questions on the Money Matters WhatsApp group. If you don't know how to join the Money Matters WhatsApp group, the link is also shared on the chat. So feel free to be able to actually join that WhatsApp group where we converse more about money, and so that you can learn. All right, here we go. No questions, Mama. I joined the session late, but I will try to join on time next week. Thank you. Okay, Lingani, we will be posting the recording of this lesson onto our on the WhatsApp group, on Facebook, and on our YouTube channel. So just follow us on social media so that you can be able to get access to the lessons that we've done, and you can be able to learn. And of course, you can always come back and ask questions related to anything that you'd want to get clarity on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tapelo. We like it when people understand what we were trying to get across, and they learn as much as they can. Everybody, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and please make better decisions when it comes to your finances for the rest of this Black Friday season and the festive season, so that we start the 2024 financial year on a good note, making better financial decisions. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for your time.